The production of this video was made possible by donors to the Orchestration Online Patreon initiative. Please consider adding your support to the creation of free educational internet resources by visiting our Patreon page linked below. Hey there, this is your orchestration tutor Thomas Goss. In Lesson 2 of the ongoing Massive Open Online Orchestration course, I made the suggestion that composers band together to share the cost of readings for the assignments. Now let's take a look at the long-term advantages of such a strategy, because you could easily continue to work this way and get a lot more done as a group than on your own. Artists have a tendency to seek out each other's company, just to be able to share their perspectives if nothing else. The Orchestration Online community is one example of that, and there are many more such internet composer communities. When the benefits of friendship and artistic development join together, the results can be very positive. Sometimes these communities can stretch across artistic disciplines. Ravel's Apaches were a mixed crowd of poets, painters, writers, and composers, who sometimes collaborated on projects, but mostly just loved to hang out and discuss art and literature. They made their shyest, least talkative member, Ravel, into their official mascot. Some composer groups are quite famous. The Mighty Handful, also known as the Mighty Five or the Russian Five, were a group that defined the school of Russian nationalist music, along with Tchaikovsky. They did help to inspire each other to greatness, but they were organized largely by the prime motivator Balakirev, and when he withdrew his support, the group dissolved, as did the musical careers of most of its members. The great exception was Rimsky-Korsakov, who filled in the holes in his musical training, and then took it upon himself to edit and preserve many of the great works of his comrades, especially those of Mussorgsky. Another well-known composer group was the Parisian collective Les Six, who came to prominence in the 1920s, after being arbitrarily lumped together in a music critic's review as the most promising young composers of their generation. Unlike the Mighty Handful, the members of Les Six had no central musical authority dictating the cultural direction of their music, though they did work with Jean Cocteau from time to time and considered Erik Satie as an unofficial mascot. Actually, their musical styles were quite different from each other, yet their sense of freshness and energy helped to unify their efforts, and they took action with far more motivation to help get their works performed. Today, there are three kinds of composer groups: circles of friends, small organizations, and societies. I belong to all three, and I can't really say that any one type is necessarily better than another. They each have different benefits, and helped my career in different ways. I found inspiration and emotional support amongst my close composer friends, a local anchor for my music in a small composer group, and national recognition and connections with a society. Though I still did most of my important work on my own, these groups were vital in opening doors and making me feel confident and appreciated for my music. So let's take a look at the benefits of each of these ways of connecting. Keep in mind that, just like me, you could easily belong to all three types of groups, possibly even without really planning to. For instance, the first type is a given. If you're a composer, then you should have composer friends to hang out with. That's basic to human nature. Many of my strongest and longest-lasting friendships are with fellow composers. Even when our lives have gone in different directions, the artistic connection remains strong because we can understand things about each other's creativity that even our nearest and dearest can't. But here's something that a lot of composer friends don't understand at first. Their local culture can thrive because of their connection to one another, even if it's completely informal. The more encouragement we can give one another as friends, the more we get done in the place where we live, and the more likely our non-musical connections will experience what we have to share in turn. So I strongly encourage composers simply hanging out together, to listen to each other's music, share ideas, and even just mutually complain about things. The next logical step tends to evolve out of local circumstances. Composers who appreciate each other's music will join together to create opportunities. This relationship can be completely informal, or have a casual structure, or even end up with a board of directors and an official non-profit status. It all depends on how ambitious you are and what you want to accomplish. In the San Francisco Bay Area, for instance, there have been several such organizations, and I worked with them or belonged to them in different capacities. The simplest way to run such a group is to have a limited ongoing membership and small, achievable goals at first. 5 members is a good target. The odd number means that you can break a tie if you have to vote on something. It's small enough to easily get in touch with everyone, and for your audience to clearly absorb your artistic personalities. On the other hand, it's not so small that your resources are severely limited, along with your available scores. 5 composers can each write a 10 to 15 minute work, and then have a full concert's worth of new material. Here's an informal strategy that worked very well for a 5-member composer group to which I belonged. 2 to 3 times a year, we'd present a concert at a downtown San Francisco venue that had an ongoing chamber music series. Our performers tended to be established chamber music ensembles in the area, like a wind quintet or string quartet. We didn't always have huge audiences, but there was always fairly good attendance on par with what you'd expect for a chamber concert of better-known composers. We had the ongoing series audience, plus our friends and composer crowd, plus the followers of the ensemble. The biggest challenge for any composer group that gets to this level or higher is administration. There has to be someone to organize activities, do the cold calls, collect the box office, and pay the performers. These small but essential details can kill promising composer groups, through inactivity or errors, or simply not sharing the burden fairly. Another challenge is unrealistic expectations, assuming that your efforts will lead to fame and fortune instead of just slow, modest progress. It's quite disappointing to have your best work performed on a day that no one chooses to attend. But that's just the way things go sometimes. Some composer groups have actually held on to the small membership model and been quite successful at organizing larger activities, like composer contests or new music marathons. These are great ways of getting the word out to the contemporary music community and helping other composers get recognized. They're also good fundable activities if you've created a non-profit structure around your group. Eventually, though, things can get so big that the effort really requires the support of a large organization, and this is where composer societies come in. They can fund really big projects, like composer residencies, commissioning initiatives, and grants. I've served as an advisor to one of these groups, helping to organize concerts, adjudicate scores, and generally help to shape the direction of the local chapter. There are several prominent societies in the United States, as well as other countries, and they can be very helpful to emerging composers who aren't yet connected to their local community in any formal way. Any community will rise or fall depending on the attitude its members have, and what kind of benefits their efforts earn. The Composer Society I mentioned above had enormous interest from many local composers at first, until those composers started to realize that the society wasn't going to be throwing money and opportunities around to anyone who asked. After that, attendance at monthly meetings dwindled considerably, though our membership still grew and our salons had decent attendance. Similarly, when small composer groups change or lose members quickly, then connections and audiences are also lost and must slowly be rebuilt. And if friendships aren't cultivated honestly and sincerely, then a community can suffer. There's always a degree of risk and heartbreak involved in any venture, artistic or otherwise. But if you can keep the focus off of your ego and on bringing new music to listeners, then at least the spirit of what you're doing will succeed, even if you don't always achieve what you'd planned. We composers tend to be very good at spontaneity and informality. We can make great things out of very casual relationships and sporadic contacts. During the time when I was very committed to the small composer organization I mentioned above, I often banded together temporarily with other composers to stage performances and focus attention on our music. For instance, consider the possibilities of a casual circle of composers taking on the assignments of the Orchestration Online MOOC courses and producing a sort of season of works out of it. Remember, the MOOC course is set up so that composers can slowly accumulate contacts with local concert musicians and build ensembles from those contacts. Think about everything I said in this video, and feel free to use the Orchestration Online community to connect with composers in a more local way if you want to organize your own composer groups. I'll be back very soon with more orchestration lessons and special topics. See you soon.